Boys and girls who play all day can never say they're unafraid when ghosts and ghouls of haunted past resurrect from the ash. Ah, you're here, dear viewers. Welcome, foolish mortals, to the Neverland Book Club. I am your host, your ghost host. Kindly sit all the way down, please, and make room for everyone. There's no turning back now. Your cadaverous pallor betrays an aura of foreboding, almost as though you sense a disquieting metamorphosis. Is this reading room actually stretching, or is it your imagination? And consider this dismaying observation. This chamber has no windows and no doors. There is a subscribe button, though. The spookiness continues today as we are nearing the end of October and the countdown to Halloween. Today, I'd like to share with you my personal top 5 list of the scariest books I have ever read. Do keep in mind, these are only based on titles I have personally read, which is not to say others may find these titles more or less terrifying than the stories they have read themselves. Growing up on a healthy diet of King and Kuntz, I am no stranger to all the possibilities of what that scratching sound at 3 a.m. could possibly be, though it's probably just the cat. However, for today's list, I tried my best not to be too biased. And I use the word tried very lax. These are not listed in any particular order, but some are definitely scarier than others. I shall rank them on a scale of 1 to 5 Pennywises. Can you imagine 5 Pennywises? Alright, to start off our list, and to absolutely no surprise at all, Geralds Game by Stephen King. Classified as suspense rather than horror. This one I remember reading all the way through a very cold, dark night, and I could not put it down. I was so enwrapped, not only in the story, but the parallel King universes it presents. King loves a good well. He has used the imagery and symbolism of a well many times in different novels and short stories before. This particular story is linked to Dolores Claiborne, another solid story, but I wouldn't classify it as horror necessarily, though it is still rather dark. So, Gerald's Game. We have a man and wife packing for a romantic weekend away. Spooky. They're about middle age and are looking to spice up their love life. How does one do this in a creative yet cliché way? Handcuffs. But not the fuzzy kind you can snap out of easily. No. Industrial, police-issued handcuffs. 2 pairs to be exact, to tie your wrists to both sides of the bed for a nice spread. Now, in the beginning, you may think you're reading something more along the lines of an erotic, fictitious, sexy time novel, but such frivolities soon turn quite dark once Gerald's little game begins. Gerald is the husband in this frisky duo, with Jessie being his wife, our main character. Of course, I don't want to spoil anything further, but let's just say we enter the survival mind of Jessie as she spends about 90% of the novel handcuffed to the bed. This video is not intended to discuss film adaptations, but I can't mention Gerald's Game without also mentioning its 2017 Netflix adaptation, directed by none other than the refreshing Mike Flanagan, and Jessie being played by one of my childhood crushes and the mom from Spy Kids, Clara Gugino? A Flanagan favorite. I give this title 3.5 Pennywises out of 5 since it's not necessarily horror, but it will get your heart racing in that adrenaline-seeking way we horror readers are just so addicted to. It's very fun. Next, we have The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, another solid Mike Flanagan adaptation, though the novel and Netflix original series are almost nothing at all alike other than character names and basic lore. Both are solid in their horrific elements. This instant classic novel, written by one of history's most prized female horror writers, is one of those original house possesses its occupants story that has been regurgitated in Hollywood so many times, but nothing beats an original. Written in 1959 and characterized as gothic horror, the novel follows a set of 4 characters, all who find themselves at Hill House, a famously haunted mansion in an abstract location near hills. These 4 characters are completely different in personality, nature, and skepticism, making the haunting even more entertaining to see the different interpretations of what exactly bleeding walls could mean. These 4 are meant not just to stay at Hill House, but to investigate these strange phenomenon, soon becoming enveloped in the house's mischief. Jackson's use of abstract and vague situational descriptions and teasing themes making for a truly possessing read. Wink. According to Wikipedia, The Haunting of Hill House is considered one of the best literary ghost stories published during the 20th century. Like with all great horror stories, the monsters are not what is scary. It's not what goes bump that terrifies us. It's what happens to us after we hear the knock in the night. What our imaginations run with that makes our hands begin to tremble. What makes our teeth chatter when we wake in the middle of the night for no apparent reason. Our hearts racing in the dark, the sweat cooling the back of our neck as we look in the corner and can't tell if there's something there, or our mind has risen against us in a way we may rather lose it than know the answer. Just me? I would rank The Haunting of Hill House 4 out of 5 Pennywises due to Jackson's masterful skill of making the reader feel as though they are losing their minds, right there with the characters. Shirley Jackson cannot be mentioned without also mentioning this short story that skyrocketed her literary career and was the basic inspiration for The Hunger Games. The Lottery. Go read it. Have fun. Next, Coraline by Neil Gaiman. So, before reading The Sandman recently, Coraline was the only Gaiman work I had read, even after knowing how amazing the man is, and I regret not reading more of him earlier on. Coraline, though, in particular, is one of those whimsical, almost childish stories that sticks with you long after reading. Now, this title is presented as written for young readers, which I think is the more scarier aspect. Because although Coraline's adventures may seem charming and fun as she counts the windows and doors in her new house and becomes acquainted with the new characters around her and their quirks, as well as a well. Again, there's a well. This story is perhaps one of the most terrifying original ideas conceptualized. While counting the doors, Coraline comes across a small door, something only a child could fit through. After finding the key to open it, she finds it is blocked off by a brick wall. It isn't until late at night a little mouse shows her the way through the door, into a parallel universe where the exact same house stands with the same characters and environment as her original life, but everything seems just a little off. Too good to be true, musical, eccentric, everything she could ever dream of or want. Her parents are also in this world. Where in her real life she begs for their attention, here they dote on her in a way that would make any middle child envious. To stay in this new and fantastical reality, all she needs to do is sew buttons into her eyes and become like the rest of them. Now, again with adaptations, this one in particular is one of my favorite films, and it has a very Tim Burton-esque feel to it, though Burton's name is not on it. The stop-motion animation, music, and overall story just scream Nightmare Before Christmas or Corpse Bride as their inspiration, though I'm not sure how much of Burton's style was copied. It still makes it one of the most fun yet terrifying stories to enter. I give Coraline 3.5 Pennywises. Also, her name is Coraline instead of Caroline, allegedly due to a typo gone wrong on Gaiman's account. He had typed it incorrectly at some point and decided to make her a character all on her own. We thank Gaiman's speedy fingers for accidentally sparking the inspiration for this haunting and imaginative nightmare. Next, we have a title I expect a little pushback for. Okay. A title that made its way across pop media's radar for a hot second a few years back, but died down rather quickly. Bird Box by Josh Malerman. Now, I know what you're thinking, but hear me out. A novel is far more immersive than a film. The Netflix adaptation of Bird Box back in 2018 broke records, claiming 45 million subscriber accounts worldwide had watched the film within the first week, despite its mixed reviews from critics. That's crazy. And today, it's Squid Game. And to think, the book is even crazier. Of course, you can't always fit a full novel into a 2-hour runtime, but this one did a solid job in relaying the post-apocalyptic and, honestly, foreshadowing scenarios presented in this story. With an M. Night Shyamalan feel, this story follows one woman and her journey living through a pandemic of unexplained violence brought on by looking at a certain something that cannot be explained. Looking at this certain something, be it light or the thing itself, even illustrations of it could make one essentially join sides with those that have decided to follow its reign. Funny story, actually, I have a whole review written for this novel. I had written it shortly after reading the novel and then watching the film release, apparently along with 45 million other people. That is where I first got the idea for this channel, after writing that review. And here we are. Give this video a like or comment down below if you'd like to see that video, if I should make it now, after all this time. Let me know. Alright, I give Bird Box 4.5 out of 5 Pennywises because I was genuinely terrified while reading this novel. It clearly stuck with me, and the premise was original at the time. Remember when the movie was popular and there were so many memes and trends of people walking around in public blindfolded, hurting themselves, and people were like, why couldn't the characters in that movie just stay inside? Just stay inside. There's a harmful, unknown, fatal thing outside. All we need to do is stay inside. People are dying. And if we do go outside, we need to implement, I don't know, some sort of facial covering to protect us from this thing. Yeah, remember that? Why does the computer keep turning on? Alright, last but not least, we have the scariest novel I have ever read, and the only one on this short list of 5 that has not been adapted into a Netflix original. While writing this video, I did not realize that 3 out of 5 of these were not only adaptations, but Netflix adaptations. You'll find some good stuff on the horror tab, apparently. Darkfall by Dean Koontz. So, after reading this one, I found myself actually trying to block out what I had just read, just out of my mind. Koontz has a specific skill for being able to live through writing such horrific things without missing a beat. From aliens, home invasions, demons, voodoo, magic, literal monsters, to husbands. Koontz is one of mine and my mother's favorite horror suspense writers. She has gifted me many Koontz books, and I even have a cheeky stash in my parents' house for when I'm over and need a literary fix. Holy men tell us life is a mystery. They embrace that concept happily, but some mysteries bite and bark and come to get you in the dark. Darkfall, original title Darkness Comes, which isn't as ominous in my opinion, presents at first as a true crime novel, focusing on a righteous cop, father, and widower named Jack Dawson. No, not that one. This one came way before that one, in 1984. After finding 4 disfigured corpses, all seeming to have been stabbed multiple times with small objects, Jack and his partner Rebecca first think the killings are linked to the mafia, then perhaps animal killings. But when supernatural possibilities present themselves, Jack soon finds a trail leading to a Bakor, a voodoo witch for hire. The lore of voodoo magic is explained in the novel through Jack's attempted investigation. His 2 children are also brought into the mix as possible collateral damage, making his success in defeating this Bakor all the more detrimental. The horror of this novel not only represents in the true-life pull from voodoo magic lore, but also from the looming fact that what we find in the novel, the creatures that have escaped the mouth of hell, are that of a small variety. That the mouth is just not open big enough yet to let the big bad in, but that possibility is all the more terrifying. And who knows if we'll have her there to close it again. I don't want to give too much away on this one because it truly terrified me, and I urge you to go read it if you are not faint of heart when it comes to gruesome descriptions and otherwise possible accounts. If you believe in that sort of hocus pocus. I give Darkfall 5 out of 5 Pennywises because of everything I just said, and if you do decide to read it, definitely do so during the day. And set rat traps before you start, because if you see a rat while reading, you'll be all the more scared. Alright, that wraps up my top 5 list, though I do have some honorable mentions here I'd like to talk about without making this video too long. First, we have The Shining. Of course. This one actually had me jumpy while reading it in my youth. But don't worry, just chuck the book in the freezer when it gets too scary and you'll be fine. Next, we have The Handmaid's Tale. Although this is a dystopian novel and not necessarily horror, you all know how terrifying I find this particular introduced world, so yeah. Next, Kill Creek, one of our earlier reviews here on this channel, and I still can't believe Scott Thomas has commented on my video and follows me on Instagram. It's very exciting. One of the scariest books I've ever read, but I didn't add it to the list here because there's already a full review. Go watch it, and then go read it, please. Next! It! A lot of Stephen King, of course. It was by far one of the most terrifying novels I've ever read. I do feel as though all of the hype and film adaptations have tainted the title just a little bit. Pennywise is the original devil clown, and the fact that it represents as your worst fears, not only just a clown, but it cannot be described, which is why it's called It. That's terrifying. The accounts described in the novel of different people seeing it, the fact that it just straight eats people and children, the lore of it coming back after 27 years in particular, just the details conjured up by King to develop a character, an entity that transcends through novels and stories, just horrific genius. Say what you will about the movies, both old and new, this one is terrifying and long. One of King's longest novels right after The Stand. The Stand. At 1,138 pages. The Stand is 1,152, so close call. Also, a scary story about a pandemic, so relevant. Some say he predicted 2020, but I think Koontz did a better job at predicting this pandemic in The Eyes of Darkness, describing the actual place and virus it began, but that statement has been debunked. Speaking of Koontz, Intensity. This one, oh boy. So intense. This is classified under suspense, and my goodness, is it suspenseful. Straight through, one of the most gripping novels I've read. Talk about a strong female lead gaining revenge against evil and overcoming her own personal demons at the same time. I probably should have just made this list longer, but it's my birthday, I'll do what I want. Next, I'd like to add a few short stories to our list of honorable mentions, just real quick, don't go anywhere. two of which are king. Of course. First, we have The Mist. Again, with the just stay inside. Just stay inside and you'll be fine. Say what you want about the two adaptations. Again, this short story will have you running from misty hills in a screeching rage. We have mist today. Then we have Children of the Corn. One of the most terrifying stories because not only is it describing killer cult children, but something possessing them to be that way. And it's set in Middle America. That's terrifying on its own. Then we have anything written by the king of short story horror and goth daddy himself, Edgar Allan Poe. Literally just anything written by him. It's worth reading. And last we have a tiny, tiny read, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. Omelas? By Ursula K. Le Guin. I'm so sorry if I've mispronounced all of that. This one is a social commentary on there having to be suffering for a few for the good of many, presented in a utopia only possible by the torment of one child. Very well written and worth the read. All right. Whew. That was a long, long list of titles to get through, and I am sure I have forgotten to mention more than a few. I'll likely think of more after this video goes up or even while editing, but be sure to comment down below the scariest book you've ever read, especially if I've missed it here. Horror is by far my favorite genre, and I am always open to new reads by new authors as well as seasoned horror vets. That's all I have for you today, dear viewers. Thank you so much for watching. Halloween is around the corner, and I am so excited to see what you all will be this year. Feel free to follow us on Instagram and send us your costumes as well as your recommendations. Also, be sure to check us out on Patreon if you haven't done so already. With 3 spooky tiers, one of them is bound to be right for you. Today's shout-out goes to Sue McKay for perhaps one of the best comments I have ever received. When I say this made my day, thank you. I too couldn't live without reading. It has saved me in more than many ways. Alright, I'm off to go rummage through my closet and frantically come up with my costume for this year. Don't ask me what I'll be for Halloween. The answer is always the same. Anxious and another year older. Stay lost, keep reading, and remember, when you hear the knell of a requiem bell, weird glows gleam where spirits dwell. Restless bones etherealize, rise as spooks of every size. Happy Halloween! Goodbye!
Yay.